Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to What You Want. Thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the IWC Portuguese Chronograph, reference 3714-31, 41 millimeters, 18 karat white gold. From 1998 to present, the 3714 chronograph series has become something of a living legend, one of the longest running Portuguese references of all time. IWC hit the ground running with this one. Spanning parts of 3 decades, production of the 3714 speaks to the universal appeal of this reference and the near impossibility of improving upon the original formula. However, this reference, the -31, is a significant discontinued example, widely sought and coveted by collectors. It pairs subtle white gold with a gorgeous soleil, that is sunburst, anthracite metallic dial. So let's put it on the wrist and let's talk a little bit about what makes this specific reference extraordinary and the 3714 so memorable and enduring. Now, the specific feature of this watch that sets it apart is the combination of that dial with the white gold. But I want to get to the basic proportions of the watch before I introduce the unique aspect. You can see on my wrist, which is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, the watch is nice, compact, discreet, and sits nice and flush to the wrist. A true dress reference. It's only 12.5 millimeters thick. As you can see in this profile shot, it's very close coupled to my skin. And again, in this profile shot, you can see that it sits nice and low. And it has a gorgeous, long and tapered set of lugs that really flare out. Being smaller than an average Portuguese, the average Portuguese is roughly 42, 43, 44, depending on complications. This 41 millimeter watch gives the designers more lug to play with. You can have a longer lug when you have a smaller case, and the graceful arcing lugs on this watch add a tremendous amount of elegance. They're curved longitudinally, but you can see from this angle they also taper off. There's tumble home, the way they're beveled from side to side, so there's complex curvature at play. It makes for a real look of refinement. And if you do have a smaller wrist, as I do, the 3714 is the perfect Portuguese option for you. I feel like you could wear this watch down to a wrist size of maybe even 5 2/3 inches or 5 3/4 inches, just because the proportions are ideally suited for a smaller wrist. In absolute terms, I'm going to say the dimensions are smaller. So let me correct myself. The proportions read like that of a classic Portuguese. In absolute terms, the dimensions are smaller. But you have the classic big dial look with a tremendous ratio of dial to bezel. The bezel is almost invisible. It's a bare sliver of metal when seen from overhead. You have the gorgeous flare of the integrated lugs and then the applied Arabic numerals with foy hands. From 10 paces, this reads as a Portuguese, but it's the best option if your wrist is like mine, a little bit smaller, or if you want something a bit more discreet. Now, in white gold, we begin to get to the key of this watch's unique appeal. It's got a premium heft to it, a lot of substance, a little bit more mass than you expect. White gold feels like a treat on the wrist. You know what you're wearing. And in the presence of connoisseurs, this particular reference is going to draw appreciative stares and compliments, but it's not gaudy, it's not flamboyant. White gold is kind of like a secret between you and your watch. You know it's there, but to all the world, it may as well be steel. It could be titanium. Again, this is a true connoisseur's piece, and that's why IWC collectors covet it. Now, it's the anthracite dial that amounts to the second half of this watch's winning formula. Anthracite soleil pattern, that is, it has sunburst graining, and you can see the play of the light across that sunburst graining, radiating out from the junction of the hands. It also features a gorgeous and dramatic concave dished rehaut, or 60-minute chapter ring, that slopes down from the bezel and the sapphire to just above the dial, where it stops. Cantilevered outward, there's a distinct break from that chapter ring to the dial base itself. Every aspect of this watch is articulated to add a visual wrinkle just when you're lulled into a sense of complacency tracing its lines. You see a disruption, you see a little bit of dissonance that intrigues and draws you back in. And that break between the chapter ring and the dial is the first one. Now, there is a minute track in between the applied white gold hour numerals, and that minute track is actually reductive, having been drilled into the anthracite dial and plated with silvered gloss or silvered high polish treatment. Again, it just helps the light to play a little bit differently than it does on the metallic finish of the soleil dial. So you have that polish and gleam, but you also have the sunburst metallic graining. Now, all of the classic Portuguese numerals are applied. They are not punched out. They are not raised from the dial base itself. They are separately applied and positioned by hand. So there's that handicraft appeal inherent in this watch. All of the hands, likewise, are polished white gold, a gorgeous complement to the metal of the case. The watch is simple and classical, with beautiful symmetry. It has that twin-register chronograph layout that's really not of this era. It's something that feels as if it belongs to the first half of the 20th century, like the Portuguese design itself. Now, the watch also features a chronograph, which is quite possibly the most complication other than the humble date window. Now, with a chronograph, you can time anything from your time-sensitive fish tacos on the grill to intervals between meetings. I've often used the examples of eggs or the kids' time out. Hopefully the kids are behaving themselves because they're going to want to inherit something like this if it's in the family. But the bottom line is the chronograph engine powering all of the above is the IWC caliber 79320 based on the Valjoux 7750 automatic winding chronograph movement. It has a 42-hour power reserve and it's very tough. It's an ideal proven tractor for a design that stood the test of time. The Portuguese fundamentally has been around since 1939. The 7750 movement has been around since 1974, and this classic reference, the 3714, has been around since 1998. Three great continuities, three great horological legacies in one timepiece, with that gorgeous pairing of 18-karat white gold and an intriguing sunburst metallic anthracite dial. This watch is complete with all original IWC boxes, technical documents, papers of provenance, and you can see it all on our website, Watch You Want.